We talked about farmers here for a moment. I mentioned the growing frustration with the Trump administration from farmers. My next guest is actually the head of the National Farmers Union, which represents hundreds of thousands of family farmers, and is slamming the president's new round of trade talks, saying, quote, every time Trump escalates his trade war, China calls his bluff. And why would we expect any differently this time around? Between burning bridges with all of our biggest trading partners and undermining our domestic biofuels industry, President Trump is making things worse, not better. Roger Johnson, president of the National Farmers Union, is here with me. Sir, thank you very much for joining me this evening. First, sir, let me get your perspective in terms of what you're hearing from the farmers and the family farms that you are speaking to on a daily basis about this ongoing trade war.
Well, you need to start with understanding that there's a lot of financial stress in agriculture right now. Net farm income is about half of what it was 6 years ago. The farm debt is at near record levels. Farm bankruptcies are going up. All of this stuff that you've been talking about creates an enormous amount of uncertainty. When we talk about Trump and trade and China, we sometimes forget that this is a president that has also offended the leaders of a lot of the other major markets around the country or around the world, whether it's starting with Mexico, with Canada, with the EU, with Japan. You just go around the world and there have been disparaging comments made about leaders and about people. And these are folks that farmers sell our products to. We're enormously dependent on them. So it isn't just about China. It's about our reputation around the world and the fact that we're losing markets and it's hurting our economy.
And Mr. Johnson, I am sure, though, you and the farmers you represent have heard the president on the trail at his rallies, always touting how well the farmers are doing. And in fact, he himself has in the past always boasted that farmers love him. One poll shows that 71% of farmers support President Trump. How do you explain that with what you're describing now, that the farming industry has been hurt, but at the same time, the president also says farmers like him?
Listen, farmers historically have tended to be Republican. They're conservative, they're independent, they on the one hand, they don't want government telling them what to do. On the other hand, they want government policies to be market friendly. They want the government to be involved in negotiating trade agreements that work for them. And what we're seeing is that the economy in agriculture is just in a lot of trouble right now. And so at some point, those sort of feelings about who you prefer, you also have to think about your economic future. And I think at the end of the day, more and more farmers are coming to understand that, listen, what this president is doing is harming our reputation. And it's literally going to take us decades to get some of these. We may never get some of these markets back. China used to be a top market. They're number 5 last year for agriculture. We've lost over $20 billion worth of sales in China. Just agricultural sales. So, I mean, there's just a lot of stress here.
So let me ask you about your reaction to what Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina said, which is, hey, you just got to accept the pain. What do you say to that, Senator?
Well, I think we've been accepting a lot of pain. We've been dealing with a lot of pain. At the end of the day, you know, when it's time to vote, farmers are going to go to the polls just like every other American does, and they're going to think about a lot of different things. But one of the things that they're going to have to be thinking about this next year is, are they still going to be in business the next year or the year after? Their financial circumstances are becoming very, very troubling right now.
All right, Roger Johnson, sir, thank you very much for joining us. Danielle Moody-Mills, Mark Thompson as well. Thank you here on set.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.